Hello and welcome to Politics Today. And in this programme today, we'll be discussing the US presidential election, knowing that we're now less than a month before the Americans go to the polls and decide who their next president's going to be. And we'll also be discussing why this very heated and nasty presidential election campaign will affect us here in Britain, and also what are the spiritual implications if Hillary Clinton wins the election or whether Donald Trump wins the presidential elections, not only for America, but also for the free world. And my guest on today's programme is filmmaker Mark Sutherland. Mark, welcome to Politics Today. I know the last time you were on this programme was just on the eve of the Brexit vote, and now you're here again on the eve of the presidential vote.
Thank you, Simon. Good to be back, and thank you very much indeed. So, yeah, we are on this incredibly important election. As far as I'm concerned, for Western civilization, and some people might think we are being dramatic. I don't believe we are being dramatic. I must be like you, cannot believe the propaganda from the mainstream news, and of course we have to get straight into that and think how they are actually conducting themselves in regard to one of the participants in this particular election.
Yeah, but I have to say from the record really that I don't like either candidates for the presidential campaign. I mean, Hillary Clinton, I mean, she's involved in the corruption from days when she was she was in the White House as the wife of the president.
You
Bill
can
Clinton.
go before that as well.
And then we can go back all the way to the Whitewater scandals and all those other scandals. So we know that if Hillary wins the presidential election, then we know that scandal and lies and manipulation will follow her. That's her trait. It's the same trait when she was Secretary of State. And then we also have the very outspoken and very flamboyant Donald Trump.
In regard to Hillary, in fact, I'd like to say we need to go back further. We go back to when she first married Bill. We go back to Arkansas. We go back to the cattle derivatives, the fallout from them when she became in the presidency, from Travelgate, etc. There are dead bodies around that couple. We cannot deny that. And I remember just saying to you just now about an interview in 1992 on 60 Minutes where she's going, I'm going to stand by my man and all the rest, where he was about to get the Democratic nomination. And it was also about then that he had been accused of having inappropriate relationships outside his marriage. He has been accused, in regard to a lady called Broderick, rape, etc. Paula Jones, Catherine Wiley, I think they were at the debate on last Sunday. In fact, Mr. Trump held a news conference with those ladies. And then the other infamous case of the fact that Hillary Clinton defended a 41-year-old man who raped a 14-year-old and put that young lady in coma for 5 days, and then said that she basically was asking for it because she liked older men. That, we're not making that up. That's out there. That's documented. Trump is not a politician. And I think the key thing is that the people at the top of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they must regularly have sort of dinner together, and they regularly get together in their private golf clubs. They are the same. That's a bit of a revelation, maybe, to some people. It's not a revelation to the people that are waking up in America. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about him, I believe, being used where he's starting a movement. And I'm not here to defend him in regard to, comments that were made 11 years ago and all the rest that he's actually apologised for. But the big difference between Trump and Clinton is this. You have to ask yourself, well, first of all, where has Trump got his money from? Where have the Clintons got their money from? Without us going over regular stuff that's in the tabloids, on other lamestream media. So Trump gets given £1 million. Some people think it's £14 million, where they look at Snopes, which is extremely left-wing leaning anyway, and then off he goes and creates this empire. Hillary Clinton, I believe that Clintons have always been in the public sector. So where all these millions of pounds come from? These millions of pounds are being given by various countries to get access. We used to call it, brown paper envelopes and all this kind of thing. So it's pay for play. We will pay you, and you will ask and do what we want inside Washington. And that is what's going on. So Trump, they can't control him. He gets to the top. He doesn't owe anyone any favors whatsoever. And even though it's not shown on CNN, you know, the Clinton News Network or ABC or Behind Clinton, there are other television stations with various links like that, abbreviations of comedic that we could talk about. But Trump, when he gets in, and I pray he does, I'd just like to say that, and I'll lose even more friends. I've lost friends over the fact that we decided to come out of the European Union. Maybe they weren't friends in the first place. But now we look at this situation. It's about the fact that when he gets there, and I pray he does, he is not beholden to anyone. He has started a movement. There are thousands of people that attend his rallies. No, he's not politically correct. How refreshing. He says it how it is. And I wonder how, you know, when Jesus went into the temple and threw the money changers out, how did he behave there? It wasn't, oh, could we please leave? Could we stop doing this? He threw them out. And Trump is passionate about being an American, and he loves America. Now, what I find absolutely fascinating is that he's had the guts, one, to go into the black community. He has very strong links that are building there. And he has gone into the Hispanic community, the Latino community. He is addressing and going to places where other other Republican nominations have never been, to coin a phrase of a beer advert. So that is what he is doing, you know. Now Clinton is owned. Clinton she will owe a lot of people a lot of positions and a lot of favors. And personally, as you know, as someone that passionately cares and supports Israel, this needs to change. And the Clinton has had, so in 2008, she's the person that brought the birther question up. Go and find out. We're not making any of these things up. Go and look. So she brings that up. So then she becomes, you know, the foreign secretary traveling around the world. And frankly, the chaos that's been caused in the Middle East can be laid at her feet, can be laid at the present administration's feet. And we could go through, you know, we could talk about Iran, red lines in the sand. We could talk about 1.7 billion given to get a few of the American sailors back. We could then go into Egypt. We could then go into all the other chaos that's going on that gets described as an Arab Spring, which is actually planned. And more importantly, so we look at Libya, the absolute basket case that has been created. And I'm not sitting here defending Gaddafi in the past. And I would like to say that our previous Prime Minister, I think Mr. Tony Blair, met him in the tent and it all seemed good friends. So that is what has gone on. But Libya is now a basket case. I wonder why is that? Because David Cameron suddenly actually resigned as an MP because a report comes out that finds him and a few others wanting in that case.
Absolutely. So, Mark, we need to go to have a look at this short video presentation, news report on the recent US presidential debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
It was a big night for the campaign. Mr. Trump won the debate. She was defensive without sufficiently defending herself. And you saw a very resolute, very principled Donald Trump showing that he is ready to be president and commander-in-chief on day one. He took the case to her over ISIS, over Syria, over Benghazi, over her emails, over any number of reasons why a majority of Americans find her to not be honest or trustworthy.
He was incoherent, and I think she was, he obviously came in with a specific idea of just being on attack all night long. I think what she wanted to do was talk to the voters who were asking questions. This was a town hall format, and to talk to the voters across the country. And I think he's desperate. He's trying to change the subject. He's trying to take people's mind off of what people should have known for a long time, but certainly saw over the course of the weekend.
I think really the prosecution of Hillary Clinton's record and calling her out on her lies and then talking about the WikiLeaks documents that were released that she did not refute. Every time she had to respond, she says, oh, well, that's not true, and everybody knows it's true. And I think really just exposing her. And that's why you saw tonight Donald Trump looked very presidential. He made his case. He prosecuted the case. And Hillary Clinton looked extremely rattled.
We think people know who he is. What we want to do in this debate was understand that there are voters that over the course of the last 48 hours heard the really terrible things he said about women on Access Hollywood, and that they were decided they can't vote for him. So looking to see in Hillary Clinton, does she have plans for the problems I'm concerned about? And we think that that is what we wanted her to come in to do. And she was able to do that about healthcare costs and about how you would create jobs and how you keep the tax code fair. And that is the opportunity that this debate gave us. That's what we wanted to do.
I'm now joined on the phone by Michael Shannon, who's an American political commentator, to give us a real insight view into the US presidential elections. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Simon. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Michael, can you share with us really your inside view of what your perception is regarding this campaign, both Hillary's campaign and also the campaign by Donald Trump?
Well, as Governor Mike Huckabee said a couple of days ago, after the political archaeologist managed to unearth a tape 11 years old, that he thinks the Rhino, which is Republican in name only, and the establishment Republicans aren't afraid Trump will lose. They're afraid he will win. And I kind of agree with the governor. I frankly wasn't going to watch the debate Sunday because I think the town hall format is the most puerile so-called debate format possible. The networks try to find a group of people who know even less about the Constitution than Trump does, and they make sure these, quote, undecided voters are actually Hillary voters or Democrat voters, and then they pepper them with big government questions. But I tell you, that's the finest debate I think I've ever seen. The only way it could have been better is if Trump had come on stage whirling like Jim Carrey in the movie The Mask and started off saying, "Somebody stop me."
Absolutely. So Michael, what was your take on this one? Because when we look at the news reports, we look at our newspapers here in the UK, there seems to be impression, as in the polls in the United States, that this is Hillary's to lose. What is the chance that Trump can surprise many social political commentators and actually win the presidency in November?
I think Trump's going to lose. I think that he is going to be like the charge of the Light Brigade. Those cavalrymen saw those guns. They saw they were riding into certain defeat, and they charged full speed. And that's what Donald Trump is going to do. He is going to charge full speed. He's going down fighting. He's not going to lose politely, which is what the establishment would prefer him to do. My column this week was I picked the 5 best lines that Trump had in that debate. And he called Hillary out on her lies and her hypocrisy. We still laugh at the answer she gave to the WikiLeaks quote where it says, well, you have to have one policy in private and another in public. And he says, oh, my gosh, now she's blaming Abe Lincoln for her lies. Periodically during the debate, we had to stop the TV so that we could laugh and not cover up the rest of it and then restart it. It was just an amazing exhibition by a guy who is not afraid. See, he's actually speaking truth to power, and power doesn't like it.
So I have to ask you, Michael, what is at stake at this crucial presidential elections for the United States and also for the free world?
The entire complexion of the country. Hillary doesn't believe that citizens have any real say in what their country is who makes up their country. She believes in open borders. So we're going to continue to import poverty, ignorance, and the third world into the country. But even worse, we actually have 2 legislatures now in the United States. We have the Congress, but we also have a mini legislature, the Supreme Court. And they like to write their own laws, and they don't have to run for election. It's even better. And right now it's tied 4 leftists and 4, you've got a few conservatives, but then you also have wafflers like John Roberts. Hillary will pack the court with leftists. You will lose any sort of strict constructionist viewpoint on the Supreme Court for 30 years. And after that's done, I don't think there's any going back. Even if the Republicans keep the House and the Senate, the only difference between a Democrat-run Congress and a Republican-run Congress is the Republicans get to the big government destination slower than the Democrats would. These guys, someone once said, and I wish it had been me, that when Democrats win an election, they wield power. But when Republicans win an election, they hold office. And that's exactly what happens. These guys want to keep their perks, they want to keep their titles, and they don't want to upset the apple cart, the big government apple cart.
Yeah. And finally, Michael, I have to ask you, in terms of the US presidential election campaign that we're seeing today, many Christians feel kind of slightly repulsed by some of Donald Trump's lurid comments. I know these were made 10 years ago, but his general attitude in terms of supporting Christian values. Do you think that in this election that he'll get many Christian voters voting for him?
Yeah, excuse me, Simon. Yes, I do. We have to keep something in mind. As you pointed out, it was over a decade he said this. They were lewd. They're indefensible. I've been an athlete for a lot of my life, and yeah, some guys talk like that, but I didn't spend a lot of time with them. But as Howie Carr, who's a columnist in Boston, pointed out, the difference between Donald Trump and Bill Clinton is Donald Trump took no for an answer. And you also have to keep in mind that Donald Trump he's rude, crude, and socially unacceptable, but he doesn't advocate abortion up to 9 months. And that's the stakes here. Do you want a woman who continues to worship at the altar of abortion, who thinks that there's nothing wrong, and in fact that the government should endorse and support homosexual marriage, who believes that seriously mentally ill people who are in basic rebellion against God and as to their sex should be able to use any bathroom they wish? Those are the stakes. And for a Christian, God uses imperfect people. In the Old Testament, Tissaphernes, who was really evil, supported Nehemiah when he went back to Jerusalem.
Absolutely.
So I don't think there's any choice for Christians. Don't think of it as supporting Donald Trump. Think of it as saving the unborn.
Absolutely. Michael, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest today on Politics Today, and we've got future programs coming up looking at the US presidential election, so we'd love you to join us for those programs.
Well, I would be happy to do so, and thanks for having me on, Simon.
Pleasure. Good to speak to you, Michael. Thank you.
Bye.
Mark, we had there Michael Shannon, who's a very well-known social and political commentator in the States, and he's worked on various different election campaigns in the States. But we really have to ask the really important question is, why does this presidential election happening the other side of in the Atlantic, in the United States, matter to Britain and British Christians?
It matters to Britain because we have to look at, frankly, at what's happening in the Middle East. Now, I don't follow the certain narratives that are given out from the mainstream media. We have to look at Syria. We have to look at what Russia is doing. We have to look at and understand very, very quickly why the Americans have been fighting a proxy war through, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and ISIS. Now, various emails from WikiLeaks, people need to go and look at them. We need to look at this chaos. Now, I am not sitting here, as I've said before to you, my friend, about that I am a theologian. Do we have, an Ezekiel 38-39 moment? Are we there? Are we in regard to Psalm 83? Are we looking at Isaiah 15-17? There is biblical prophecy. where are we on this timeline? And if Clinton gets in, to me, it's like, well, I blame Russia for everything. You know, Ukraine, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's the European and the Americans toppling that government. So she will get in, and it be blame Russia, let's go to war, full stop. That is happening right now. I believe that in regard to nuclear proliferation, the Americans and the Russians have broken off various talks. There was an article in Daily Telegraph yesterday where Gorbachev's talking about the fact that I've never seen such a time of appalling relationships between Russia and America. Here we are. So we're just going to press a button, are we? Because World War IV will be from fought with stones and sticks. And that, to me, is the issue. From a Christian point of view, Michael, bang on the money and everything. Bless him. Totally agree with him. That doesn't make us, particularly popular with certain people. But we either believe the Bible or we don't.
Absolutely.
And I'm not particularly interested in being popular. The fact is that she, in regard to liberalism, progressivism, that's what will go. She will fill the justice system with left-wing judges and all the rest. That's what's going on. There's even more of a persecution of Christians. You know, there'll be even Filegate. I'll pull the cabinet out and look at who else I can have something on and persecute them and cause utter chaos. And I have to come back, I suppose it's come back to our favourite subject. This is globalism. We see it all over again. This is what is going on. So I want to throw this in. One thing I really want to say, and Michael really touched this on and mentioning the Old Testament. I'm not sitting here as a theologian. The key thing is, as British Christians, look at Ahab, look at Jezebel, read 1 Kings 16, read Kings, look at, Micah 6:16, look at Ezra 1, look at those things. Now, Cyrus, Isaiah 45, look at that. Oh, yeah, but Mr. Trump doesn't fit this, he's not perfect. I believe, and others have said this greater than me, we are at it's a Cyrus moment, right? That I will use a non-Jew to rebuild the temple. Proverbs 25, I think 24, talks a lot about walls and why walls are important. Boundaries are important. So coming back to us, why is this important? We need to pray. We need to pray severely about this. I am not going, oh Lord, bless this. No, get down on your knees, seek God. And there's a thing in Scripture where it talks about binding and loosing. Ephesians 6 says, we're not fighting about flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. We had one major war in regard to our nation on the 23rd of June. I've said this. That we had a civil war without shedding blood. So we have to pray for America. If you don't understand it, look at the history. Why did they go over there on the Mayflower? Fleeing religious persecution. The Republic is at stake, and it's understanding what the Republic means. By the people, for the people. The governance is different. I'd even say that it's not democratic in that sense. It's representing the people. The people are supposed to have a say, and that's why you have the Second Amendment. Oh, my favourite subject. Second Amendment says you have a right to bear arms against a tyrannical government. It's not for deer hunting. Now, I don't want to see war. I don't want to see a battle going on. But that is actually what's going on. Clinton has, as far as I'm concerned, Michael said it, she has no respect for the American people. Trump may be gruff, but at the end of the day, he loves America and he loves the American people. And that's why he's heading a movement, which I believe he will be one of the most accountable presidents going, of who's around him. And people like Ben Carson, Pence, you couldn't ask for a more Christian man.
Yeah, Mark, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest on Politics Today. And this is a fascinating subject because I almost feel as if the free world is at stake here. Yes. I mean, the British people voted to leave globalism by voting Brexit, and the American people have the same opportunity come early November. So we'll see how they vote, but it's important that we vote and pray. But thank you so much for being my guest on today's programme. And I just want to thank you for watching Politics Today as we've discussed the US presidential election, which can only be described as ugly and fierce and bitter, with two very unlikable candidates. but we have to understand that we need to pray that God would intervene and that God would have his will in this presidential election, and we can see fundamental change in the United States. So could we see Trump win the presidency? I'll have to find out in November. So thank you for watching today's Politics Today.